What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another live stream. You read the title. I don't have to really, you know, go into depth with what we're doing here. So, I made a video talking about how these people are defending, they call it zoophilia. It's actually called bestiality. Um, and they're defending it. They're writing articles about it. There was one that was called "Zoophilia is morally permissible," and I have that article right here. And I'm
No next
joined
link. Main landmark.
here,
Clickable mute. Clickable mic.
and we're
Stop
going
clickable.
to
Stop click
be
clickable.
going
Clickable button mute mic
through it.
clickable. Clickable lil tree. Clickable button unmute lil tree's mic. Clickable start clickable mic. Clickable mute mic.
Well, I don't know what happened to him. He's like dead.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, and I'm going to be saying that a lot in this video. I promise you. Bismillah.
Yeah.
If you don't know what أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم means, it means seek refuge in Allah from Shaitan and his curse. And I curse Satan. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We begin in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, and peace be upon his last and final messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, guys, to all you guys who are watching. So today we are, oh my gosh, okay. So we are going to be looking through this nonsense to see why zoophilia is morally permissible and all that other nonsense.
Yep.
So, take it away, bro.
All right, so we have the article right
Sex with heading level 2 introduction.
Zoophilia is morally permissible, and it was written by a anonymous author. They went by a pseudonym. You don't know what that means? It means they went by a different name than they actually are.
Don't trying to school me on these fancy terms. I know what math is.
Okay, yeah. So this person wrote anonymously because they didn't want to get found out. They even say so. I think in the intro that
they do. Yeah, I read it.
They're going to get
They said, although I don't practice zoophilia, I don't want to get found out for people that.
I don't want to get found out for defending this because society isn't yet at the point where it's widely accepted. We're not at the we're not like where we're at with homosexuality right now, where everybody thinks it's fine.
Right.
We haven't reached that stage. I would give it 20 or so years if we keep going this way. But as of right now, society does not like it, and so and he's trying to change that. He's actually using the exact same arguments. The reason that in that video I said I hope you people who did this free sexuality stuff are happy because this is what you guys caused. This is what you did. This is what happens. Now you are disgusted when you see these people come up with the zoophile stuff, but they're using your same arguments. Why don't you like it anymore?
Sex with animals is a powerful social taboo that exposes its practitioners to utmost indignation and stigma. Zoophilia is one of the few sexual orientations, along with e.g. necrophilia or pedophilia, that remain off limits and have been left aside from the sexual liberation movement in the past 50 years. Point 1.
Yeah, why do you think that is, bro?
For good reason, dude.
Why do you think that is, bro? why do you think that is?
Are you really going to argue?
People can't have fun or something, bro? There's a reason for that.
Let me have fun, man. If I want to, do what I want.
Yeah, bro, let me have sex
an animal or a child. Or a dead body, let me do it. This is really what these people think. And then they wonder why we freaking don't support that kind of stuff.
I would like to argue that this is a mistake. There is in fact nothing wrong with having sex with animals. It is not an inherently.
That's not something that I thought I was gonna be reading. Okay. He just straight up says it. He just says it. He's just there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, guys, you can have sex with animals. You just can't. You can do it, bro. You can do it.
You can. There's nothing wrong with it. He said.
What's that?
Problematic sexual practice. Given the sheer outrage that the mere mention of zoophilia triggers in many people, we might expect the case for its permissibility to be a hard sell and my claims to be modest and tentative. This is not so. Not only do I think that zoophilia is morally permissible, but I also think that the case in its favor is rather straightforward, so that it should be the default position within many philosophical quarters. This makes it all the more surprising that no.
So he's actually not wrong in one thing. Not his premise. But he's not wrong in the fact that anybody who accepts like all these other things, this pride, sexuality stuff, it should be the default position for them. It should be. Because under their logic, it will take them this far.
Ambitious and explicit defense of it has been published so far. I start in section. Link 1 by clarifying what is meant by zoophilia in section. Link 2 I introduce the debate over the permissibility of zoophilia in sections. Link 3 and Link 4 I address the questions of whether zoophilia is harmful and whether animals can consent to sex with humans in section. Link 5 I tease out some important implications. 1. The topic is so socially sensitive that I write under a pseudonym out of fears of negative repercussions on my career and private life, even if I do not engage myself in zoophilia.
He's scared. He's scared. He doesn't
want... bro. No wonder why people are gonna you're gonna face repercussions.
We're gonna blast you for this, dude.
Bro.
If they found out who's
you are. Who's gonna hire you, bro?
Nobody. Nobody, dude.
Swear, wallahi al-azim, good luck getting a job, bro.
Graphic on label page 2, Landmark Journal of Controversial Ideas 2023, 3, 2, 5.
God, imagine what else they publish.
Link 10. Heading level 2 1. What is zoophilia? Heading level 2 by zoophilia, I mean human engagement in romantic and/or sexual relationships with. Heading level 2.
You cannot have a romantic relationship with an animal.
Heading level 2. Non-human 2. Heading level 2. Animals. Point 3. We can distinguish between zoophilic activities. The heading level 2. Bestiality being sometimes used to refer to zoophilic sexual activities and zoophilic. Heading level 2. Orientation understood as a general attitude of romantic and/or sexual attraction. Heading level 2 2. Some animals which disposes one to engage in zoophilic activities as an. Heading level 2. Orientation, sometimes referred to as sexuality. Zoophilia can thus be compared.
What the?
Heading level 2 with other orientations such as heterosexuality or bisexuality. For and should accordingly.
He's doing my job for me. He's creating the perfect counter argument to all of this, like, oh, we support homo stuff. He's doing it for me.
Heading level 2 be distinguished from mere fetishes, i.e. sexual interests for specific non-living objects, or heading level 2 non-genital body parts. Heading level 2 this basic definition calls for several comments. First, zoophilia covers a variety of romantic and sexual activities. Point 5 the latter are not limited to vaginal or anal penetration. Selected. Heading level 2 but also include masturbation, oral genital contact, frottage, zoophilic voyeurism, etc. Selected.
I didn't come to read about all the freaking weird sex things people like to do.
Second, I leave open the possibility for zoophiles to engage only in non-sexual activities. Selected. Such as displays of affection or caring behaviors, but it is sexual activities that are selected, usually considered to be morally problematic, so most of my arguments will concern selected sexual activities. Third, there might be doubts about the possibility of having a romantic selected relationship with an animal. Humans sometimes do love their pets, and reciprocally pets selected, like dogs, can plausibly be attributed attitudes of love toward human beings, but it is true selected that what is required for love to count as romantic is debated. Point 6 fourth, zoophilia as in selected. Orientation comes in different degrees. Zoophiles might have an exclusive attraction for selected animals or be also attracted to human beings. Point 7 selected. Zoophilia is the object of widespread social ostracism, especially in its heading level. Head 2 strictly who as is customary. I will use the term animals to refer only to non-free the romantic and sexual aspects of zoophilia. Goat def leads to inclusion in sexually motivated and targeted acts with the direct intention lead def goat free human strictly who as is customary. Heading level 2 XX15. Heading level 2 passages which portray bestiality as a crime against nature. Heading level 2 more visible sexual component. Point 8 we can already find it. Heading level 2 orientation comes in different degrees. Zoophiles might have an exclusive attraction for. Heading level 2 zoophilia is the object of widespread social ostracism, especially in its target. Heading level 2 more visible sexual component. Point 8 we can already find in the Old Testament several.
Yeah. Of course you guys want to go there because you know.
Heading level 2 passages which portray bestiality as a crime against nature, e.g. Leviticus v23. Heading level 2 XX15. Various forms of sex with animals, both real interactions and pornographic. 2 as is customary. I will use the term animals to refer only to non-human animals, though, strictly speaking, humans are animals too.
Oh, by the way, we are not the only people, the only book that permits this kind of stuff, and that doesn't permit this kind of stuff. We're not.
Yeah. Yeah, and I actually there was a passage that in the Quran in Surah Al-Ma'raj, chapter number 70, verses 29 to 31. It says, and we already went through the the thing about homosexuality, right?
Yeah.
The thing about homosexuality. We already went through that. But Surah Al-Ma'raj, chapter 70, verses 29 to 31 is more specific. It says, well, more general, but it still covers under this type of nonsense sexual activity, where it says that if you don't yeah, if you don't have if you guard your chastity and you do those types of things with only your wives and those whom your right hands possess. I actually might have to make a video on what right hands possess mean, because that's always like misinterpreted. But it basically means female captives, and you cannot unconsensually do things with them, and if you marry them they become free women. But anything other than that, you cannot do that with, because you have transgressed limits, according to Surah Al-Maraj, verse 29 to 31.
All right, Francis Cole says hi. What's up, man?
Hi.
So, yeah, we're just having to read the
Three human.
out.
Three romantic and sexual aspects of zoophilia can be summarized as erotic, as in Balajaran. Gochels. Definition of zoophilia as a strong, erotic relationship with an animal in such a manner that it leads to its inclusion in sexually motivated and targeted acts with the direct intention of sexually arousing oneself, the animal or another party. Balajar T. and Gochel AF 2005. Says zoophilia. Animal or another party. Balajar T. and Gochel AF 2005. Sexual relations with animals. Zo an unrecognized problem in animal welfare legislation. An A.M. Beats an A.L. Bodbersek S. Bestiality. And zoophilia. Sexual relations with animals. Purdue University Press. P24. 4C Miletsky H. 2005. Is Bodbersek S. Opposite. Miletsky H. 2017. Zoophilia. Another sexual orientation. Archives of sexual.
Like citations.
Behavior. 46. 1. 3942. Link to the article. 5CED. The typologies proposed by Agrawal A. 2011. A new classification of zoophilia. Journal of Forensic and Legal Medicine 18. 2. 7. Link to the article. Emmett L. Clammert L. and Statina B. U. 2021. Demystifying zoophilia. Classification and psychological aspects of humans having sexual relationships with animals. International Journal of Forensic Mental Health 22. 1. Link to the link article. 6. For a discussion of animal capacities for love. C. Milligan T. 2014. And for love. And C. Moore T. 211. Link to the Art 7. Miletsky H. 2017. Opposite. 8. Miletsky H. 2005. 2. Page 3. Landmark Journal of Controversial. Link 10. Heading level 2 depictions are currently outlawed in numerous jurisdictions. 0.90 and link 10.35995/size 0302. Heading level 2 and decriminalization have been observed in Western countries in the 20th century. Heading level 2 depictions are currently outlawed in numerous jurisdictions. 0.90 increased tolerance. Heading level 2 and decriminalization have been observed in Western countries in the 20th century. Heading level 2 mainly as a collateral effect of sexual liberalization, more recently a significant trend of heading level 2 recriminalization, e.g. in Germany, France, and some U.S. states, has taken place. Heading level 2 this time under the additional pressure of animal rights activists who have generally heading level 2 expressed intense hostility to zoophilia. 0.11 scientific approach.
If they're being consistent, they should. Because they're all about like, oh, we don't want you to hurt animals. And that's literally what that does.
Heading level 2 expressed intense hostility to zoophilia. 0.11 scientific approaches to zoophilia have often heading level 2 been premised on the wrongness of zoophilia. To take just one example, in veterinary heading level 2 science, the concept of animal sexual abuse is construed as including all sexual contact. Heading level 2 between people and animals. 12 thus effectively taking a stand against all forms of sex with heading level 2 between people. Heading level 2 animals. Zoophilia is also heavily pathologized and treated as a mental disorder.
It should be. It should be, dude. It should be all of these sexual acts that go outside.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of what is
what are we talking about?
And yeah, good.
We're talking because I got a phone call. My dad was calling me, and
okay.
Oh, what are you doing, little cat? Little cat, you should be lucky that you live with us, because there are people that in this world that want to do disgusting things to you. So yeah, you should be lucky that you live with a family that fears God. Anyway, what were we talking about?
Animals. Zoophilia has also been heavily pathologized and treated as a mental disorder. It's selected.
We were talking about that. It says that it's been treated as a mental disorder, and I'm like, it should be.
Is it not though? Is it not what?
It is. Isn't it quite literally like? I'm gonna say something, and it's gonna offend like all of the freaking Gen Z LGBTQ people, yeah. But anything that is outside of what it's supposed to be for is disordered. That's just like objectively true.
Yeah, definitely.
Was introduced as a paraphilia in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders selected. DSM-3 in 1980 selected. Despite this social consensus against zoophilia, there is evidence of zoophilic selected practices and representations in many societies. 13 Numerous myths and folkloric selected traditions, for example, contain anthropomorphic characters and depictions of sexual selected relationships between humans and animals. The prevalence of zoophilia in the general selected population, however, is difficult to establish due to the paucity of research on the selected. Topic 14 Most scientific studies of zoophiles are based on convenient samples of selected self-identified zoophiles on the internet or focus on forensic, notably sex offenders or selected clinical populations. An inaugural study by Kinsey and colleagues found that 8% of the selected male and 3.5% of the female U.S. populations had at least one sexual interaction selected with an animal in their life, with a percentage exceeding 50% in some rural locations. 15 Selected.
So is your argument really just everyone else did it?
Bro, that cannot be your argument, bro. Oh, there's a spoon.
I swear, please don't freaking tell me you're doing this, dude. Everyone else did it, even though you just showed that like no one did it. Are you kidding me?
One major factor driving the prevalence of zoophilic activity is simply access to animals selected. Though the rural population has an easier access to farm animals, the increased number selected of pets has offered new opportunities for the urban population to engage in sex with selected animals too, with dogs being by far the most common species that zoophiles have selected. Relationships with 0.16, a more recent survey, N equals 1015, suggests that 2%.
What do you mean? I have never had any kind of desire to...
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, bro.
What do you mean?
Heading level 2 animals 2, with dogs being by far the most common species that zoophiles have. 1498 characters until heading level 2 relationships with 0.16, a more recent survey, N equals 1015, suggests that 2% of the general relationships with 0.16, a more recent survey, N9C part 1 of Bork, J 2020. Loving reaction select react 9C relationships with 0.16, a more recent survey, N equals 1015, suggests that 2% of the general selected. 9C part 1 of Bork, J 2020. Loving reaction selected. React 9C part 1 of Bork, J 2020. Loving animals on bestiality, zoophilia and post-human love selected. Reaction selected. Books, Vedder S, Boros A, and Asfari L 2020. Penal sanctioning of zoophilia in light of the selected. Legal status selected. Of animals, a comparative analysis of 15 European countries. Animals 10, 6, 1024 selected. Link to the article selected.
So what this looks like it is just basically saying 2% of the population is a freak. And so because 2% of the population is a freak,
that means everyone should be a freak too, right?
Or it means that everybody should at least not say anything about it. Maybe you don't have to do it, but you should at least not say anything about it. Apparently that's the argument.
10 in the U.S., for example, the wave of anti-zoophilic legislation followed the law or sex selected. Case in selected, 2005, in which a man died from injuries after having received anal sex from a stallion. Selected.
Yeah.
11. This hostility was clearly visible in angry reactions from some members of the animal rights selected movement. The selected. Singer's short article Heavy Petting, 2001. In France, it is revealing that zoophilic practices selected have been selected, outlawed in 2021 as part of a broader legislative package in favor of animal welfare and rights selected. Loya and White Bullet selected, 2021 1539. See selected. Link to the article. Wells Stern A. W. and Smith Blackmore M. 2016. Veterinary forensic pathology of animal sexual selected. Abused selected. Veterinary pathology 53. 5. 1057 66 at 1058. Selected. Link to the article selected. 13 Deckers M 2000. Dearest Pet on Bestiality Verso Valculin Del Rio J M and selected. Cossier's Theory R Select 2020. Social Scientific Analysis of Human Animal Sexual Interactions Animals 10 1780 selected. Link to the selected article selected. 14 Aloyda B Sorrentine for Legal Unselected. Mental Health Professionals Behavioral Sciences and the Law 36 6 687.97 selected. HTTP 2368 Compo Arias Queso Select Studios 51 selected. 3438 selected. Link to the article selected.
This is a bunch of citations.
15 Kin Indiana selected. University Press. Jeppard selected. E 1916 with Reese Journal of Controversial Idea 10.3 population finds the prospect of 10.35995 size 030200005 selected. Population finds the prospect of having sex with animals sexually arousing. 17 while selected.
Yeah, so 2% of the population thinks it's hot to do this to animals. So that means it's fine, guys. That's what they're saying.
That's even relevant, bro.
Popular non-academic survey, N equals 430,000, probably skewed toward a sex-positive selected. Population finds that around 11% of the male and 7% of the female respondents have selected some sexual interest in horses and around 18% of the male respondents and 11% of selected. The female respondents express some sexual interest in penetrating an animal. 0.18 to selected.
Horses, bro?
Horses? Come on, bro. So basically you're doing the classic thing that the LGBT people do, which is just say, oh, but this tiny percentage of people likes doing this. So it's fine, guys. who and my response would be like, who? I don't care. Who cares? I don't care if this little tiny percentage of the population likes doing this.
Anyway, yeah, I think sorry, I'm just getting something. Yeah, I feel like it's like everyone is doing this. So what's the problem if Jack or Joe does it? You know, like what is it?
It's the classic like this little tiny there's people who do it. Yeah, and what does that tell you about it being right? Nothing.
Line feeds appeal. The female respondents express some sexual interest in penetrating an animal. 0.18 to selected. Appeal of zoophilia is also reflected in the wealth of zoopornography that can be found on selected. The internet. Zoophilia, it turns out, is more common than we might think. Selected. Many people who have sex with animals do not strictly speaking have a zoophilic selected orientation, but use animals as surrogates for human sex partners. In this case, sexual selected activities with animals often have an experimental dimension and might be a passing selected phase during teenage years. In contrast, zoophilia does constitute a more full-fledged selected sexual orientation for other people. With the advent of the internet, groups of zoophiles selected have coalesced into a budding social movement, sometimes represented by the Greek selected letter Zeta, which puts animal welfare and preferences on center stage and firmly selected, condemns any form of zoosadism and abuse. 0.19 calling themselves zoos. They urge that selected, their orientation be acknowledged as a legitimate sexual identity alongside other already selected, recognized sexual identities. 0.20 selected.
Which we made a mistake by ever recognizing those either, too, because if we had never done that, we would never be having this discussion.
2. Debating zoophilia selected. The ethics of zoophilia has been subject to little academic attention so far. We might think selected at first that zoophilia is so obviously wrong that no discussion whatsoever is needed. But selected, this is not the case. Those who have addressed the ethical status of zoophilia sometimes selected.
This is the case. I'll tell you why. Because God says that that's disgusting and it's unnatural.
Literally,
and that's all you need.
God Almighty says it?
That's literally all you need. If you have an objection if you're willing to grant to us that God exists and you have an objection to a creator of the universe saying something is not okay, then you need to get your freaking ego checked, because who do you think you are?
Confess that most existing arguments for the wrongness of zoophilia are lacking. 0.21 to selected. By knowledge, only 3 authors working on ethics have expressed some degree of selected sympathy with zoophilia. Singer, in his notorious article Heavy Petting, 22 takes a broadly selected, utilitarian approach to question why sex with animals should be a crime even if the animal selected is not coerced or harmed. He attributes our hostility to sex with animals to speciesist selected.
You're breaking up, man.
Oh, I am?
No, not anymore.
Okay. All right, it's better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so like you just said, literally if you have an objection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, no, this is bad, don't do it, then you need to wait until the day of judgment and you can talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about it. And you can talk to him about it all that you want. Because right now you are in no position to question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on what he says and what he decrees, right? So literally, by the way, like I don't understand, and I should have probably mentioned this earlier, why these guys say such and such is not such a morally permissible. What morals do you stand on?
Yeah, that's the thing. So like if we go
an atheistic secular list of morals, everything is permissible, any circumstance at any time. If you rely on another system of morality, please tell me what that system is so we can know what system.
Yeah, exactly. Because what these people really rely on is their system is like, if it makes people happy, why not? Or something like that. And it's like, no, no. We can all see the problem with that. And we do not, the problem with, this is why I keep mentioning that when we enabled all these other people to do their thing, we allowed for this kind of discussion. So like there will be people who might have like same-sex attraction, right? And they might watch this and be like, that's disgusting. I don't support this. Right. But the same arguments that you can use to justify your thing, we can use it to justify this because we basically removed sexuality from what its purpose is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you do that, then you've enabled all sorts of things. Like he mentioned necrophilia in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
These people can't really say necrophilia is bad, other than we think it's disgusting, because it can't feel it. The body's dead. So what? They're not doing it harm.
This is the yeah. I can't believe I was cooking up some pasta in this thing. We yeah. So that's why you heard like me moving, and you heard like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Huh? You want some pasta, little boy? Go. No, you're not having my pasta. Go. Anyway, he says that we're doing a good job for blasting people that want to do disgusting things to his kind. Anyway.
Good. Yeah.
Anyway, so like the thing about that we're not harming one principle. Like remember the video on sex work I did?
Yeah, the harm principle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that can be used to justify necrophilia. It can be used to justify all sorts of things because we're not harming anyone.
Which we naturally find repulsive, right? Like we all, I don't think that anybody you ask around here is gonna say, "Oh yeah, we support necrophilia." No, they're gonna be like, "That's disgusting," and I agree with them. It is, but the problem is that with you guys are the same kind of people who support the LGBT stuff. You have no objection, but when you do that, you don't think about where it leads you.
That can be argued for that, bro.
These people do not think about where it leads them. It doesn't. They don't think about what it does. They don't think about like a few years down the line what happens when you do these kinds of things. They're just like, oh, just let people be happy, and they don't understand the problems that come out. Like the same thing happened with the transgender stuff. They were like, oh yeah, just let them think they can do it. They're crazy. And then they ended up saying things like, oh, they actually are what they say they are. And now we've progressed to the point where they're saying, oh, we can actually be animals. We can change our age. We can say we have disabilities. And it's all because we didn't say no in the beginning.
These guys don't understand long term.
No, they don't.
Prejudice. Rudy takes queer theory as her starting point and uses zoophilia to question selected. The demarcation between sex and non-sex. Point 2.3. Finally, Bork provides a groundbreaking selected discussion of various aspects of zoophilia in order to think through ways of cultivating selected, more kind and caring relationships between different species. 24. All for
So can somebody tell me what the hell is queer theory? Queer theory. I swear.
Oh shoot.
They selected are defending zoophilia and fall short of claiming that zoophilia is permissible. 0.25 selected. 17 Dawson S. J. Bannerman B. A. and Lumiere M. L. 2016. Paraphilic interests. An examination selected. Of sex selected. Differences in a non-clinical sample. Sexual abuse. 28. 1. 2045. Selected. Link to the article. 18. Link to the articles. 19. Movement selected. Move 19. These ideals are reflected in the Zeta principles that have been proposed to regulate the unselected. 19. Movement selected. C selected. Link to the article. Select 20 CEG. Selected. Link to the article. Selected. 21 Levy, for example. 4E. 21 Levy, for example, agrees that none of the objections against bestiality are very convincing. Selected.
I mean, if you don't find God says so convincing, I don't know what to tell you.
I think that's the best objection ever.
I think that's the best one ever. Yeah, I think that's the best ever, especially because you can actually show that God exists, right? So they're gonna be like, oh, first show that that's a thing, and then we'll give it to you. Yeah, that's easy. It's a different topic, but that's easy. So if you don't find the creator saying that's not okay, if you don't think that the creator has the right to do whatever he wants in his creation, then I don't know what to tell you then.
How are you going to present a better objection than the objection the creator presents?
Yeah, how? Good luck.
P400. While Gaines notes that though on the superficial level the arguments seem appealing, upon closer selected inspection the standard justifications break down under internal inconsistencies. Abstract. Slevy N. Select.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
2003. L select the selected the article. Haynes A. M. Law review. Select link to the article. Selected.
What inconsistency?
2001 April. Heavy petting nerve. Selected. 23 Rudy K. 2012. LGBTQ Z Hypatia 27 3 60115 selected.
And right now, speaking of them, right now they like refuse to accept them. Right now, but just wait a little bit.
Link to the article. Select.
That they LGBTQZ.
Yeah, Z, it did with a question mark.
They want to get that Z added in there, don't they?
They do, yeah. That's like the whole argument in here.
24 Bork J 2025 and personal selected. Communication with Bern C Bern P4 select Journal of Controversial Ideas 10.35. My claim will be more assertive and ambitious. I would like to argue that zoophilia selected is permissible, i.e. that it is not wrong to engage in zoophilia. To this I will take for selected granted a broadly anti-speciesist or non-anthropocentric perspective that rejects human selected exceptionalism. Such a perspective ascribes some inherent value or rights to animals selected and refrains from appealing to tradition, status quo, human or animal essence, or God to selected. Reason about ethical issues. This allows us to circumvent a number of objections.
You've already lost.
Nothing you say hold water now.
Yeah, you've lost already, because when you say ethics and God in the same discussion, and then you try to say, oh, but we don't need God to discuss that, you've lost. Because you actually do need him to tell you what is right or wrong. You actually do need it. So you've already defeated yourself, but let's see.
The problem is, Fernando.
What?
It's a lose-lose for them. You wanna know why?
Why?
If they appeal to God, they lose. If they don't, they lose.
Yeah.
So they have to not appeal to God, because if they do, they lose. But if they don't, they still lose.
If they don't, they definitely lose, because you can't have these discussions without some type of like superior standard.
Exactly.
From which morals come from.
Because then morals are just irrelevant. I could say it's morally impermissible, and you can say why, and I could say because my morals say.
Because I think so. Because I say so. Right, and that's all you need.
And you would have no objection. You can't pose an objection to me.
No, you can't. It's hilarious.
On the advice, a sexual perversion. The zoophilia would usually focus on the human side of the relationship and take zoophilia to selected. The advice, a sexual perversion 26 or to go against Christian morality 27 or human essence 0.28 selected.
Yeah, how has going against Christian morality that this society was built off of going for you? How is it going?
Why is it only Christian morality that it goes against?
How is it going for you? How is society right now? I mean, these kind of people would say that it's great. These kind of people would be like, yeah, we have the most accepting, tolerant society of all time. Like,
why is that good? Why is it only Christian morality that you're saying it goes against?
Because that's like the Western religion, basically, and so because that's where they're at.
You need to notice this, guys. Christianity shares a lot of moral things in common with us.
Yes, it does. That's why he said God, because like you can also say, yeah, God says this is not permissible.
Exactly. So he can't appeal to that. Yeah.
This is not to say that zoophilia cannot be defended with an anthropocentric selected approaches. In fact, perhaps the easiest way to conclude that there is nothing wrong with selected zoophilia is to postulate that humans have a vastly higher moral standing than animals. So selected, that zoophilia is just one instance among many others of permissible use and exploitation selected of animals for human purposes. Alternatively, we might proceed in a comparative manner selected and argue that if current practices involving animals are wrong, then zoophilia is not selected. Wrong either. 0.29. This is a powerful argument, but I do not want to accept its premise that selected current practices involving animals, e.g. factory farming, are not wrong. My goal is to selected assess whether zoophilia lives up to a more demanding moral yardstick. Selected.
Guys, it's wrong. This guy says it's wrong to kill them, but it's not wrong to literally rape them.
So, what human purposes are those animals being used for?
Like food?
No, obviously, I know that. I'm eating chicken pasta, right? But yeah. He said that it's another form of exploitation of animals for human purposes. What purpose is it serving?
The zoophilia stuff is like sexual pleasure is what it's serving in that case.
That's not a purpose.
We mentioned earlier that zoophilia comes in many different forms. This diversity is selected. A problem insofar as not all forms of zoophilia have the same ethical status. It is clear selected. And some instances of zoophilia are wrong. Activities highly harmful to animals, such selected. As most instances of human penetration of chickens are obviously impermissible when selected. Might take this to contradict my general claim that zoophilia is permissible, but this would selected.
You did! You just did! You said it's fine. You said it's fine to have sex with them. Now you said it's not.
A mistake. That zoophilia is permissible does not mean that all instances of zoophilia selected are permissible in the same way that the permissibility of heterosexuality does not mean selected. That all instances of heterosexuality are permissible. What is rather meant is that there is selected, nothing intrinsic or necessary to zoophilia, be it in its romantic or sexual aspects. That selected makes it wrong. Moreover, what makes some instances of zoophilia wrong is the same selected. Human-animal relationships. Roman and Littlefield. Note 52, p. 133.
Go ahead.
Define wrong.
Oh yeah, please do. I'm still waiting for that. I'm guessing by what he's putting down here, he's basically doing the harm principle stuff. So it's like, if it's harmful to the chicken, for example, that is wrong to do because it's harmful.
It's harmful for the chicken to cook it and make pasta, which is amazing. So
he would say pasta? He would probably say that that's wrong as well to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But he does. But
he gonna be like, "Why are you eating all this other nonsense?" Anyway, yeah. So is it wrong to cook chickens in his? I
guess because it's harming them.
Is it wrong to milk cows? Because it's harming them.
Yeah. Like basically, he's like one of these animal rights activists that say we should not be eating them or doing anything, but we can have sex with them apparently. Right? Yeah, apparently we can.
And they want to say we have inconsistencies.
For real?
I don't know.
Rudy states, my argument is selected, not selected. 4 against humans having sex with animals, but is a meditation on both the elusive nature of selected. Sex itself selected.
Your argument is not in favor or against, but it's literally, you literally titled your article, zoophilia is morally permissible. If I say something is morally permissible, that means I don't think it's wrong. So it is in favor of it.
Question. Is that argument? What the hell is your argument?
And the sex itself unselected. 4 against humans having sex with animals, but is a meditation on both the elusive 4 sex itself selected and the subjectivities of human versus non-human animals. P. 605. As for Bork, she remarks that selected. Careless readers might see in my arguments either a defense of the kind of harmful, violent selected, interspecies selected, sex that has typified human-non-human relationships over centuries, bestiality, or an endorsement selected of selected. The more recent identity politics of self-proclaimed zoos. I am saying neither. She does suggest selected, at some selected point that all acts of sexual love with animals are not intrinsically immoral or harmful, so it's selected. Seems that selected. She would be sympathetic with the conclusion of this article. Selected. 26. Zoophilia would fall under the category of sexual perversion according to most of its theories selected. E.g. Head of selected. Natural T. 1969. Sexual perversion. Journal of Philosophy 66. 1. 517. Selected. Link to the article. If we think selected that perversions are wrong, then we get a straightforward argument against zoophilia. Examined by selected.
Yeah, I think perversions are wrong. Yeah, so I have a solid argument. I think perversions are wrong because God thinks perversions are wrong, and that's all I need.
Exactly. Literally, exactly.
You are not supposed to go outside of what sexuality was created for.
Literally, okay, so I'm going to explain a bit of Islamic philosophy when this water comes off. Okay, so in Islam, we believe something called the fitrah. The fitrah is like an inner intuition of something. So we know that children believe in one God, even if they're not told to believe that. You know, we know that, right?
Oh, yeah. That's been
shown.
We
know that we, as people, our inner fitrah is to reject homosexuality. Our inner fitrah is to reject pedophilia. Our inner fitrah is to reject zoophilia. Why do you think the creator of the universe instilled that fitrah in us to reject this stuff? Why?
So we would know at least some semblance of what is actually correct and good and what isn't.
Exactly. Right? So his thing is like, oh yeah, zoophilia is morally permissible, which is flawed from the very start. I don't know what morals you fall under. So for your morals, it's permissible. For mine, it's not. So yeah. Anyway, go on.
Levy selected. 2003 opposite. P445. Selected. 27 there mentioned several Christian arguments, including that zoophilia goes against the natural. Selected. God-given. Selected. Order and that it is not procreative. See Bear.
Yeah, that is the only argument you need, bro. That is the only one you need. You cannot actually, just for anybody who is like disgusted by this and like thinks it's disgusting, the only way that you can properly argue against this is by accepting religious sexual ethics.
Yep.
That is the only way to do this. Otherwise, you can't.
Literally, it says in the Quran, and I have to find it. That's hold on, give me 1 second. Okay, so literally, it says in a verse in the Quran, and I'm gonna try to find the verse and give it to you. Literally, it says in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made men and women as mates for each other so that we may find, certain things in them so that men and women can, get together and do things, right? That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the ability for us to mate between men and women. It literally says that in the Quran, right? And so if we accept that, that means that on that surface level, even without the Quran having to give a limit, we know that anything that doesn't meet that criteria is haram.
Right. And so that would take out all everything in LGBT and then all the things that aren't in there yet. And
exactly.
That's what I was saying. The only way to properly argue against this is with religious sexual ethics. And if you want to appeal to religious sexual ethics, then you've got to drop all this LGBT garbage. You have to drop it.
Yep.
You cannot have it both ways.
If you want to argue against zoophilia, you have to go to religious sexual ethics. You have to go to God, and then you have to go to scripture and all that other stuff. But that's a different thing. But if you
don't like it, if you don't like that, then you have no argument to use.
You can't argue against it. Yeah, you can't argue against it.
And they're gonna be like, "Oh, that's appeal to authority," and I'm like, "And
yeah, but it's not fallacious appeal to authority.
Yeah, it's not.
It's
not
because appeal to authority. Like if let's say, Fernando, I said it was like if you went to the what is that one doctor? I forgot his. Like if you went to a doctor for your bowel movements because you've been dropping deuces all over the carpet. Anyway, if you went to the doctor and he said you need to do this and this and this. And I said, okay, go ahead and do that. Take medicine so that you stop pooping yourself. And you say, no, that's an appeal to authority. Well, I'm like, no, it's not. It's not a fallacious appeal to authority. He's a doctor. He's telling you what to do. Now, if I went to a yoga instructor and she said, do downward dog for 2.5 hours. And I said, okay, this yoga instructor said do downward dog for 2.5 hours, and that's going to help with your bowel movements. You're going to be like, you're an idiot. That's a fallacious appeal to authority.
How would she know, right?
Appealing to God or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah Azza wa Jal, in this case, is never a fallacious appeal to authority because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the extreme authority, the ultimate authority, the supreme authority.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not bad to do that.
Interspecies sexual assault. Theoretical criminology 1. 3. 31740. Selected. Link to the article. 28 by drawing on human essence. Understood from either a religious or a naturalistic perspective. Selected. CEG. Selected. Newman M. 2015. A realist sexual ethics. Ratio 28. 2. 22340. Selected. Link to the article. We can make selected. Reproduction the touchstone of human sexuality. A subtler argument of this kind. Proposed by Levy. Selected. 2003. Opposite. Objects that zoophilia would blur the proper limits of human beings. According to selected. Is selected. Objection. Human existence proceeds within bounds. Crossing these bounds is identity threatening. Selected. B. Selected. 453 because crossing the species boundary is a significant act, at least for us, here and now. Selected as we selected. Currently define ourselves. P. 454. Selected. 29 CEG. Jones. I. 2011. A beastly provision. Why the offense of intercourse within selected. Animal must be selected.
What?
Should I check the chat?
Yeah.
Butchered. Journal of Criminal Law 75. 6. 528.44 selected. Link to the article selected. 5 selected. Journal of Controversial 10.35 kinds of conditions, such as harm or lack of consent, that make other activities, including selected sexual activities, wrong. This is what I intend to establish. Now, this result would be of selected. Little practical significance if it turns out that all or nearly all actual zoophilic selected activities selected were impermissible, but I do not think that this is so. A significant proportion of actual selected zoophilic activities are permissible too. Selected. Consider the following case. Selected. Alice and her dog. Alice self-describes as being in a romantic relationship with her selected dog. She cares a lot about his well-being and strives to ensure that his needs are selected fulfilled. They often sleep together. He likes to be caressed and she finds it pleasant. Selected. To gently rub herself on him. Sometimes when her dog is sexually aroused and tries. Selected. To hump her leg, she undresses and lets him penetrate her vagina. This is gratifying. Selected.
No. No.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
Disgusting.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق.
Oh my God.
Okay, so
Is that even
there are no
allowed
chats,
to?
bruh.
Yeah, the last one was
Hold on.
Francis's.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my
Alright, bro.
gosh, dude. No.
Anyway,
I deeply apologize.
Page to hump her leg. For both of them. To hump her leg, he
Ew.
undresses and lets him penetrate her for both of them. Alice's story describes a kind of relationship commonly described within the zeta movement where there is a reciprocal emotional attachment between the human and the animal, and sexual contacts are sexually gratifying to both of them. It is tempting to think that Alice's relationship illustrates one way in which humans can develop more equal and non-exploitative relationships with animals that go beyond our negative duties not to harm them. 30. What Alice's story also illustrates is that there is a continuity between zoophilia and affectionate relationships that ordinary people have with their pets. What is it that makes affectionately caressing one's cat of a different ethical standing than sexually caressing one's cat if there is no clear-cut boundary between the ordinary love that pet keepers?
Oh my God. What the?
Bruh.
What the fuck?
Expressing the romantic love that some zoophiles express, then why accept one and not the other?
Why accept one and not the other? This is a real question that we're being asked.
Okay. Yeah, I found a verse that actually addresses this. Right? And I don't know if you want me to bring it up now or if you want me to bring it up, but there's a verse that literally makes it so clear what the purpose of sexual activity is.
Okay. What's that?
When do you want me to
quote it?
Okay, I can quote it. So I'll read it for you. It's in Surah Al-Araf, chapter 7. It's verse 189. It says, it is he who created you from one soul and created from its mate that he might dwell in security with her. So it's talking about mating, right? It's talking about men and women. And when he covers her, she carries a light burden and continues therein. And when it becomes heavy, they both invoke Allah, their Lord. If you should give us a good child, we will surely be among the grateful. What is the purpose of sexual activity according to 7.189?
Reproduction.
Children. Does zoophilia, homosexuality, and pedophilia do that? No, it doesn't.
The only thing pedophilia does is harm children.
Exactly.
Before I turn my attention to the objections that have been raised against zoophilia, I should point out that I am not interested here in the psychological and social factors that explain our ordinary aversion towards zoophilia, though I suspect that such factors permeate most attempts at proving that zoophilia is wrong. 31. I leave them to social scientists and psychologists. Two crucial questions have dominated the ethical discussion around zoophilia. First, does zoophilia harm animals? Second, can animals meaningfully consent to sex with humans? I will discuss each of them in the next sections. In the course of doing so, I will also point out some dubious claims that have underlain most objections to zoophilia. Heading level 2-3, harm. Also point out
the first one
does zoophilia harm animals? Second
is a yes, right? And the second one, pretty sure is a no. But even if it was a yes, that doesn't matter. That doesn't do anything for our moral standpoints that we have.
Yeah.
It's still
what's the second question even?
It's still like unnatural. It was, can animals meaningfully consent? That was the second question. And I'm pretty sure the answer is no.
No.
You're making a flaw in basically basing all of your
No, but if they can't consent, then why are you doing
matter.
it?
That's what I'm saying. but he's about to make the error and basically setting his morals on what scientists say. And he's gonna say like, oh well, science says that that it's not harmful and they can consent. Okay, and what does that matter? Why do I care about that? If I have a moral standpoint in which my highest authority is quite literally the creator, why do I care whether an animal can consent or not? Because it doesn't matter if it can or not. The creator says no, don't do it anyway.
Humans, I will discuss each of them and also point out some dubious claims that have underlain most objections to zoophilia. Heading level 1, important worry is that having sex with animals would harm them. This is a legitimate worry. It is beyond doubt that some sexual practices do harm the animal involved. Whether 30 C. Donaldson S. and Kamrika W. 2011. Zoo University Press. 31 social. Unlike those 31 socially ingrained prejudice against zoophilia seems to induce intense knee-jerk reactions, not unlike those elicited by Hayden colleagues in their study of moral dumbfounding, where participants try to rationalize a posteriori their emotionally induced negative attitude toward violations of commonly accepted moral norms. Most objections against zoophilia, as well as a widespread temptation to represent zoophilia as inherently fraught with violence, thus distorting the reality of zoophilic practice, are probably no more than attempts at post hoc rationalization of such reactions. Haidt J. Bjorklund F. and Murphy S. 2000. Moral dumbfounding when intuition finds no reason.
You really cannot deny, by the way, that a lot of these people are interested in they're what these guys call zoo sadists, which means that they like to do sexual acts to them regardless of the harm or not. That's the kind of people these guys denounce. You cannot deny that is a lot. That is a lot of you guys, a lot of them.
6. Page 7 Landmark Journal of Controversial Link 10 points. This is the primary intention of the human participant, in the case of zoosadism or not. Any penetrative act on rabbits or chickens is likely to severely harm them. This, however, is not enough to establish that zoophilia is wrong. What critics of zoophilia need to show is that harm is a necessary feature of sex with animals. This is a very demanding claim, which seems patently false at first glance. Many sexual interactions with animals, such as that between Alice and her dog, do not seem to cause any pain, bodily damage, or psychological distress. In fact, there is sometimes positive evidence that the animal is having a pleasant experience.
Yes, they do. Do you think having a dog penis in there doesn't hurt? It would. I'm pretty sure it would.
Fairly confident it would. You know, I wouldn't know because I don't do stuff like that, but
exactly. Yeah.
Insisting that all instances of sex with animals produce an immediate harm appears dubious, but we might still maintain that there are other ways in which it harms them. Perhaps it has negative long-term consequences on their well-being, but what kind of long-term harm would be inflicted when no harm is inflicted during the activity? Human beings might be harmed in the long run by a sexual interaction because it perturbs their subsequent development as persons and alter their psychological makeup, or because they reevaluate through time what they have experienced and its appropriateness. Animals, however, do not have the complex psychological lives of paradigmatic human beings, as well as their intricate social norms around sexuality, so that we should be wary of excessive anthropomorphism on this matter. As Bork notes, the dog who approaches and voluntarily mounts a human is following his own species-specific meaning, for does not incur the risk of future harm that humans might incur. And voluntarily mounts a human is following his own species-specific meaning. 32. So he does not incur the risk of future harm that humans might incur. We might argue that even though no harm is reliably caused by having sex with animals, the risk of harm is enough to make such interactions wrong. This argument, let us call it the argument from ignorance, is premised on a particularly pessimistic view on our knowledge of the inner lives of animals and/or a sweeping precautionary principle. The problem with it is that assessing the well-being of animals is far from an insuperable challenge, especially when it comes to face-to-face interactions with animals. What critics of zoophilia need to establish is that sex with animals is always too risky for the long-term well-being of animals. No such argument to support this has been proposed so far. Moreover, it is unclear why this argument would apply only to sex. If the risk of harm is high enough when having sex with them, would it not be high enough to when engaging in other kinds of interactions with them? I agree that we should treat animals with great caution because it is not easy to understand how they feel, especially when we do not know them well, but it is an overreaction to infer from this that having sex with animals is wrong.
I'm sorry, what was his nonsense again?
With great harm so long. What critics of the insuperable challenge principle and what critics of zoophilia need to establish is that sex with animals is always too risky for the long-term well-being of animals. No such argument to support this has been proposed so far. Moreover, it is unclear why this argument would apply only to sex. If the risk of harm is high enough when having sex with them, would it not be high enough to when engaging in other kinds of interactions with them? I agree that we should treat animals with great caution because it is not easy to understand how they feel, especially when we do not know them well.
No,
but
you don't.
Infer from this that having sex with animals is wrong.
No, you
fair
don't.
enough, apparently.
No, you don't agree with that. I don't agree that we should treat animals with caution. No, you don't.
Oh my gosh, dude. I'm just.
You don't. What?
You
What?
don't.
Anyway.
No.
Yeah, you don't. You don't.
Interestingly, though sex with animals has often been compared to sex with children, to suggest that both are wrong for the same reason that it harms them, 33 they actually stand in sharp contrast in this respect. We are justified in thinking that having sex with children always imposes a risk of future harm to them even if no immediate harm is caused. 32 Bork, 2020, Ops, 33 CEG, Bern, 1907. Page 8 Landmark Journal of Contra link 10.35995 heading level 2 which may be a good ground for proscribing it. 0.34 the same argument fails when it comes. Which may be a good ground as zoophilia. 0.35 selected. There are more subtle ways in which zoophilia might harm animals. Here's claim selected that having sex with animals is a form of exploitation. Selected. 36 unfortunately she says little to selected. Supported and it seems that unfair conditions of treatment are by no means a pervasive selected feature of sex with animals. Alternately we might argue that zoophilia degrades or even selected violates the animal's dignity. Selected. 37 now. Dignity is a notoriously vague normative notion. Selected, especially so for animals. 0.38 in fact, it is not clear that animals have a dignity in the first selected place. Bollinger and Goetschel claim that one important aspect of the dignity of the animal selected is its sexual integrity. By this they mean unhindered sexual development and sensation. Selected, the protection from damaging decision-making by sexual exploitation of dependencies. Selected, and the protection from sexual harassment. 39 they fall short, however, of establishing selected that zoophilia would necessarily degrade the sexual dignity of the animal in this sense. Selected, to make their point, they appeal to the argument from ignorance, which I have already selected, rejected, as well as to the notion that zoophilic activities would hinder the free sexual selected development of an animal, which they do not justify in more detail. They presumably selected think that free sexual development is best displayed in same-species sexual relationships. Selected. 34 There has been some controversy in the empirical literature about the question whether selected adult-child sex selected always imposes a risk of future harm. A notorious study by Rind et al. Criticized child sexual selected abuse really causes, an average, intense long-term harm for both boys and girls, pointing to the selected subclass selected of wanted relations between boys and older adults as non-harm inducing. See Rind, B. Tromovich selected.
So you basically rest your argument on, oh well, the studies in science say so. That's not a good place to be, bro.
B. Selected and Hauserman R. 1998. Using
It's basically
and P of one
placing
subclass
his
of sub 1 P and
argument
using
on like, oh, the studies are not conclusive, right? We don't actually we have apparently these guys think that we have a good reason to believe that it is not harmful. So because of that, because they've got like some studies behind them, they think that, oh yeah, that's enough for us. That's enough to say it's not wrong. And
What is?
basically the science saying that it's not harmful or something, which it doesn't even do, by the way. But
Yeah.
even if it did, like, even if it did, I feel like you didn't learn the most obvious fact of that you don't get morality from science.
College samples, psychological bulletin 124, 1, 2253, selected. Link to the article remains that adult-child sex in all its forms causes future harm and expectation. CEG, Dallam, selected. SJ, selected. 2001. Science or Propaganda, an examination of Rind, Tromovich and Hauserman, 1998. Journal selected. Of child sexual abuse 9, 34, 10934, selected. Link to the article. A further question concerns whether the harm selected and question is entirely mediated by society's reaction. This question is probably ethically selected relevant, but for selected, the purposes of this paper there is no need to settle it. Selected 35 in the next section. I will consider the claim that animals can validly consent to sex with selected. Humans with selected raises similar comparisons with children. CEG, Aloida et al. 2018. Op. Cit. Indeed, this selected claim could selected entail that adult-child sex is not wrong when combined with the two following premises. 1. Selected children can selected validly consent to sex with adults if and only if animals can validly consent to sex with humans. Selected.
Excuse me?
What'd he say?
Foul children entail that adult claim could raise a similar raise claim could selected entail that adult-child sex is not wrong when combined with the two following premises. 1. Selected children can selected validly consent to sex with adults if and only if animals can validly consent to sex with humans. Selected. And 2. If children can validly consent to sex with adults, then it is not morally wrong. But this objection selected does not selected succeed once we take the ethical issue with adult-child sex to have ultimately to do with harm. Not selected. Consent selected. Like e.g. Moan O.M. and Sperry A.B. 2018. Pedo D. Selected. Boonen ed. The Palgrave Handbook of Philosophy
Is
and
he
Public Policy.
arguing that if children can consent, animals can consent?
That's a argument that he's addressing, apparently.
Why is
I think
it?
what he's doing is trying to say like, oh, well, children can't, but animals can.
How? Literally, how? How can animals?
I don't know.
Animals are less mentally. How do you say, like they're less mentally efficient than children. So if children can't, then animals can't either.
Publishing selected EP3. A link to the article as a result. Accepting the sex with adult humans does not lead us to defend the permissibility of adult child sex. Selected. 36 Pierce J. 2031. Selected. 37 Levy. Selected. 2003 is unclear. Selected is unclear. In what sense Alice objectifies her dog? Like most objections I review, it only targets a small selected subset of selected zoophilic activities. Selected. 38 C. Zulo F. 26 All selected. Sentient beings. Ethical face and all unselected. 38 C. Zulo F. 2016. Dignity in animals. Does it make sense to apply the concept of dignity to unselected? 38 All selected. Sentient beings. Ethical theory and moral practice. 19. 5. 11 17 30 selected. Link to the article selected. 39 Bollinger and Goschel 2008 selected. Journal of Controversial Ideas 10.35995/0. But why would that be so? Question mark 40 overall. We can conclude that more work is needed to get selected. These arguments started. Selected. 4. Consent selected. Consent is widely seen as a necessary condition for non-problematic sexual interactions. Selected. One that respects our right to autonomy and might even constitute the touchstone of selected. Morally permissible sex. 41. The second major worry about zoophilia is that the animal selected would not or could not consent to sex with humans. 42. To unravel this argument, it is selected. Important to be clear on what consent is in the first place. I will then turn to what makes selected consent ethically valid. 43. Selected. In its most basic form, consent can be defined as a voluntary, i.e. uncoerced, verbal selected, or behavioral indication of agreement to engage in a specific activity, or the mental attitude selected, signified by this indication. 44. Are there activities to which animals can consent in this selected sense? The answer is clearly positive. Suppose that during a walk in the forest I suddenly selected, see a deer. I happen to have some food in my backpack, so I hand it to him and he comes selected. Nearer to eat it. I can safely take this as an indication that the deer consents to being fed by selected me. We know from the literature on animal communication that a wide range of postures, selected, gestures, sounds, etc. are used by animals to express their needs and intent. 45. Most of us selected have personal experiences of cross-species communication, including for communicating selected. Our intentions to engage in some common activity with them. Take play, for example. Selected. Dogs have a special posture known as play bow that signals to a potential playmate they're selected. Desire to engage in a playful activity. 46. Play is a complex activity that requires playmates selected. 40. Perhaps this is what is most natural for the animal to do, but we know that the notion of selected naturalness is selected, not without its problems. Fraser presents a theory of animal well-being based on what is natural selected for them selected to do. See Fraser D. 2008. Understanding Animal Welfare. Act of Veterinaria Scandinavica 50. S1. Selected. Link selected. To the article. A selected. Arguably cannot live a natural life in this sense. See Martin A. 2019. On respecting animals selected. Or can selected animals be wronged without being harmed? Res Publica 25. 1. 8399. Selected. Link to the article. Note 2. More selected. Fundamentally, even if zoophilia may intuitively appear wholly unnatural, this does not appear to selected be by selected itself a reason to deem it wrong. Selected. 41 Primrose. For itself a reason.
It's not wrong to. If it's unnatural, it's not wrong. That's what this guy says. Okay.
41 Primrose.
It's not wrong because the animals consent by how?
4. 3. Selected. 201.18. Selected. Link to the article. P242. That valid consent matters for the permissibility of zoophilia is not universally accepted. Selected. Official rights selected. That requiring as a matter of justice a stallion to consent to sex with a human is like selected. Requiring as a selected matter of justice a rabbit have the right to vote. Official J. 2019.
No.
No. No. I swear.
Screw consent. A better selected. Politics selected. Of sexual justice. University of California Press. P. 121. Benneter briefly argues that animals are selected, not selected, capable of giving full consent, but that the mere absence of consent cannot be sufficient to selected. Render selected. Bestiality problematic given that consent is always absent in our dealings with animals. Selected. Benneter D. Selected. 2022. Homosexuality, Bestiality, and Necrophilia. D. Boonen, ed. The Palgrave Handbook of Selected. Sexual Selected. Ethics. Palgrave Macmillan. pp. 223-232 at p. 228. Selected. 43c. For a short but elaborate introduction to the notion. Wertheimer A. 2010. Consent to Selected. Sexual Selected. Relations. In F. G. Miller and A. Wertheimer, eds. The F. Oxford Selected. University Press. Selected. 44. There is a long-standing controversy over the exact nature of consent. A mental attitude or a selected. Communicative behavior. See Hurd. H. M. 1996. The Moral Magic of Consent. Legal Theory 2. 2. Selected. 121.46. Selected. Link to the article. Wertheimer Press. Chapter Philosophy. Selected. 21. 1. Selected. Link to the article. Selected. 45. Thomas S. 2009. Animal Communication. Chelsea House Publishers. Selected. 46. Balcombe J. P. 2000. Select 70. Selected. 9. Selected. Journal of Controversial I 10.3. To abide by certain rules and to fine-tune their behaviors to maintain a playful mood. When selected, it comes to sex. There is also a wide range of species and individual dependent cues that selected indicate consent. There is nothing specific about sexual activities that would make either selected animals unable to consent to them or humans unable to reliably understand this consent. Selected.
No. You can't just assume that because an animal is doing something, it means that they consent to sex. They don't know what sex is.
It's just like, no, what? Okay.
By the way, by the way, before like I was just trying to find some verses I wanted to go through later on as well, so I found them. Anyway.
Okay.
Because they make it so clear, it's unbelievable. But yeah, so no, but like, bro, just because like you're assuming that they know what sex is and like they know and they like it. Like you're assuming that.
Yeah.
Of circumstances in which this is not to say that understanding animals is always easy, but there is a wide range unselected. This is of circumstances in which we
It's
can
not.
Oh,
It's not.
oh, it's not.
It's not, huh?
It's not easy, which is why you can jump to saying that it's fine to have sex with them.
It's fine to have sex with them because you can understand reliably, and the animal knows that what it's consenting to. That doesn't make any sense. If my little cat bites me playfully, does that mean that he wants to like do some really, really gross sexual act with me? No. He's just messing around.
Selected. This basic claim is sometimes met with resistance from authors drawing on some selected variant of the argument from ignorance. Just as we would be unable to assess whether a sexual interaction harms the animal, we would be at a loss to assess whether the selected animal consents to it. This might be taken to trace back to a fundamental problem in communicating with animals.
Whether or not an interaction harms the animal or not. We can assess whether or not it harms them.
Yeah, you can.
I think any type of interaction would cause an animal pain of that kind.
Especially if it's like a male, some kind of female animal.
Yeah, exactly.
Of genuinely saying yes or no to humans in forms that we can readily understand. 47 selected. Regan, in order to criticize Singer's position on zoophilia, expresses similar ideas. Selected. An animal cannot say yes or no. In the nature of the case, for humans to engage selected in sexual activities with animals must be coercive, must display a lack of respect. Selected must be wrong. 48 selected. Such claims about the impossibility of communicating with animals, which are very selected, common in discourses about zoophilia, strike me as plainly untenable. Their ubiquity, selected, however, might be attributable to a more tendency to deny any selected agency to animals. As Bork reminds us, humans are positively resistant to treating selected non-human animals as communicable subjects. This is also noted by Donaldson and Selected Kamlicka, who write that there is an unwillingness to recognize the competences of selected, domesticated animals for agency, cooperation, and participation in mixed human-animal selected settings. 49 selected. It is widely thought that mere uncoerced sign of agreement is not enough for valid selected consent. Critics of zoophilia might recognize that animals can consent while still arguing selected, that they cannot satisfy one of the additional criteria that are needed for valid consent, selected, and thus that they cannot validly consent, selected. To start with, valid consent might require that the consented action does not harm the selected consenting individual, because I have already argued in the previous section that some selected instances of sex with animals do not harm them. Such a no-harm criterion to valid consent selected could easily be satisfied, selected. Second, it might be argued that consent can be valid only if the consenting individual selected has a specific capacity or status that animals would lack. For example, Bestiality, who selected, takes a contractualist view on what makes sex permissible, states that no non-human selected animal is capable of entering into a valid sexual contract with a human. 50. This might also selected be the criterion that Baird, 1997, and Regan had in mind when denying that animals
say.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't say there, buddy. You don't say that a human, non-human animal can't enter a valid
doesn't even know, like yeah, who would have thought?
Consent. There are two problems with this argument. First, it is unclear what the selected capacity is and why it would be necessary for consent to be valid. We might think that, say, selected 47 Baird, 1948 Regan, T. 2 Littlefield Publishers, P. 49 Donaldson and Kamlicka, 2050 Bestiality, R. 10. 3. Link to the article. 10 Select Journal of Content. 3 Phenomenal consciousness or free will are such capacities. 51 But the former is shared selected with many animals, and there is much controversy about whether humans themselves selected have the latter capacity. Selected.
Free will?
Free will? Yeah, that is
over whether humans have free will. Yeah, and
yeah, there is. And what does that have to do with this argument?
Perhaps it is a normative capacity that is required for consent to be valid, such as selected moral responsibility or the capacity to intentionally waive a right. If we think that animals selected lack such a capacity, then animals could not validly consent. These are tenable positions selected in principle, but unless we think that valid consent is required only for sexual activity, the selected fact that animals lack a crucial capacity for giving valid consent would probably proscribe selected many kinds of interactions, some widely believed to be permissible between animals selected and humans, starting with play. This would make valid consent a dubious standard for selected, regulating our interactions with animals.
But the problem is, there's a difference between like my little cat walking up to me and just sitting, just being there, ready for me to like mess around with them, versus you getting a sexual activity consent from that. That requires a more level of consent that is much more than any animal could offer, because they would have to understand what they're getting into, and they would have to
Yeah.
understand what is it that they're consenting to. So if an animal walks up to you and just is there, they're gonna expect you to mess around with them, because that's what they do. That's what you're supposed to do with like domestic pets. You're supposed to do things with them, mess around with them, not in that type of way. So you can't equate those two. You can't equate them. You can't say, oh, if that's the case, then he can't consent to play, or he can't consent to food or water. Yeah, but animals know what play is, and animals know what food and water is. They don't know what sexual activity is. They don't know. They have no idea, right? They're not. They don't know that. I mean, obviously, they do it amongst animals. They do it amongst themselves, but not amongst humans, because they don't understand that.
That's not in their instinct. They don't do that.
Exactly.
The bottom line is that either the required capacity does not threaten the validity of selected animals' consent to sex, or valid consent is unnecessary when interacting with animals in selected, which case it does not threaten the permissibility of sex with animals selected. Third, valid consent may require that the consenting individual be properly informed selected about the activity she is consenting to, the identity of the other participants, or its outcomes selected. Suppose that someone consents to donate an organ based on her understanding that her selected organ will serve a certain purpose, saving a life, whereas it is actually used for another selected purpose, training medical students. Though her consent is uncoerced, it is based on a selected, serious misunderstanding and is therefore invalid. Using her organ for training medical students would be wrong. Similarly, when it comes to sex ethics, it has been emphasized selected that misinformation or even deception about key features of the sexual interaction, e.g. selected the identity of the sexual partner, can vitiate one's consent.
Yeah, that's an argument against you.
Oh my gosh, dude.
That's an argument against you. That's an argument against your position.
Wait, hold on. Let me read that again.
The identity to your purpose, training medical student. Serious misunderstanding and is therefore invalid. Using her organ for training medical selected students would be wrong. Similarly, when it comes to sex ethics, it has been emphasized selected that misinformation or even deception about key features of the sexual interaction, e.g. selected the identity of the sexual partner, can vitiate one's consent. In general, it is often thought selected that misinformation matters when the consenting individual would not have consented selected had she been properly informed. In these situations, information plays the role of a deal selected breaker, i.e. it would have changed the decision of the consenting individual selected.
Yeah, that is an argument against you.
That is an argument against you.
It can't know. How are you going to give it
Because
that
you just
information?
That's literally what I just said previous. He just said that if someone consents to donate an organ to save a life, and it's not actually to save a life, then that's invalid consent.
Yeah.
If we know that animals can't consent to things like this, but they have to know, because the animals know play, and animals know food, and animals know water, especially like dogs and cats, because that's what we're talking about here, because I have dogs and cats. Well, I have one cat. We're talking about this. Animals know this stuff. Animals know you want to play with them, you want to feed them water, give them water, all that stuff. They know what that is. They don't know that you want to have sex with them.
Yeah, they don't.
Do you think any animal, if they could consent, would consent to that?
No.
No. You want to know why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put it in them to stay away from that. And I'm going to show you verses of that proves that is not what they were created for. It literally proves it. It makes it so clear, subhanAllah.
Yeah, and if your argument is, oh well, they have to know, like the consent is valid if they know, but they can't know. They don't know. They can't. You've lost. According to your own logic, which I don't go by, but your own logic defeats it itself.
Does animals consent to sex with humans misinformed in such a way? Do animals selected lack crucial information that would have otherwise made them refuse to engage in sex? I selected struggle to think that such does animals consent to sex with his breaker, i.e. it would have changed the decision of the consenting individual. Unselected breaker, i.e. does animals consent to sex with humans misinformed in such a way? Do animals selected lack crucial information that would have otherwise made them refuse to engage in sex? I selected
yes, they do. Yeah.
Yes and yes. You literally yes and yes.
Struggle to find any reason to think that such misinformation is a conspicuous feature of selected human-animal sex. Of course, one difficulty is that there may be aspects of the activity selected that animals do not have the capacity to understand. The deer who consents to me feeding selected him does not understand, and does not have the cognitive capacities to understand my selected complex motivation to hand him food, or the stories that I will later tell to my friends about selected. This unusual encounter, the range of information that
Yeah,
animals...
that's another argument against you.
That's another argument against you, bruh. So, like,
Because
okay, you were talking about the
animals
pedophilia
understand
stuff earlier.
sexual activity amongst animals, right?
Yeah, they do.
They understand that because they do it. They don't understand humans amongst humans. They have very... If children cannot consent, and children are more mentally efficient, they have more, I mean, obviously some animals are very smart, but children are obviously much smarter. If they don't know what consent is and they don't understand sexual activity, you can get a baby to consent to anything. Does that actually mean they understand what they're consenting to? Of course not.
Your premise is that you were talking about children earlier, actually. And your premise is basically, oh, it's wrong because it's going to hurt them later, right?
But it hurts the animals.
You're also using the same consent argument, and you're saying, oh, well, just because it doesn't fully understand doesn't mean, like, anything, right? A baby understands food. A baby understands being fed. A baby understands a lot of things.
Baby understands his when they want the mom or the dad, or when they're getting carried, or when they want
A baby understands those things.
A baby understands.
According to your logic,
just took a massive deuce in my diaper. A baby understands that.
But according to your logic,
he can't speak it, but he understands it.
According to your logic, the baby can also consent to sexual activity. Which is disgusting. No, absolutely not. But according to you, it's fine.
Yep.
This is not a problem, though, because information that we do not have the selected capacity to grasp cannot constitute a deal breaker. Selected. 51 million argues that for consent to be meaningful, it should be...
Yes, it can.
It absolutely can.
If capacity to grasp cannot constitute a deal breaker, 51 million argues that for consent to be meaningful, it should be possible for the participants selected subsequently complain to some appropriate audience about potential mistreatment. This possibility is selected. Important for humans in order to cultivate the kind of practical wisdom that is required for upholding selected standards of morally acceptable sexual relations, because this possibility would be absent in selected interactions with animals. Their consent would not be meaningful. In other words, the issue would be selected that we cannot learn how to have morally acceptable sexual relations with animals. There is a number of issues with this line of argument. For example, we may have doubts over the importance of practical wisdom for having morally acceptable sexual relations. It is condition would be necessary for developing the required practical wisdom, especially as animals typically have selected other ways to make meaningful feedback to their human partners. See Milligan, T. 2011.
What ways?
Page 11, landmark wrongness. 16 other ways to make meaningful feedback to their human partners. See Milligan, T. Wrongness of sex with animals.
The problem is... Hold on. The problem is that even if that was true, how do you know that humans are able to understand that? How do you know that they will even care? Yeah. Even though there's no way to provide feedback to their human partners. My cat can't tell me, hey, this terrible food you got me, this ass, go give me better food before I scratch you. My cat can't do that.
We can't.
It can't do that. It can maybe drop a huge deuce in the litter box, and we say, oh, okay, that's not normal. Maybe it was the food they ate. But even then, that's not even really reliable. We're just being like, okay, maybe that's possible. Maybe we need to switch it up, So when it comes to a situation like sexual activity, which is more like way more dangerous to the animal than just food, how will we know that they're even reliably able to pick up on it? How do we know that the animal is able to give feedback with regards to that? How do we know that the person that is given the feedback, how do we know that they will even care? We don't know any of this.
One particular case of misinformation that we might find problematic concerns. Animals unaware of the sexual character of the activity. Consider, for example, the following case. Bob and his dog. Bob loves his dog. Every Friday when he comes back home tired from working, he spreads honey on his penis and takes pleasure in letting his dog lick it.
Dude!
A'udhu billahi.
Dude! Oh my gosh.
Rahim, qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq.
Bob's dog may not be aware of the sexual character of the activity he is engaging in, and we might intuitively think that this threatens the validity of his consent. This would be true if the sexual character of his action were a deal breaker. This is perhaps the case, but I would like to point out that it is far from obvious. Of course, if Bob's dog was instead a human coaxed into licking Bob's penis, say Bob told him that this was the only way to relieve an itch, the sexual character of the action would probably be a deal breaker, so the information condition would not be satisfied and the validity of his consent would be undermined. This is so because of the specific ways in which humans typically regard sex. The significance of sex for humans increases the range of potential deal breakers. 0.52 for many animals, however, there is nothing special about sex. In order to avoid anthropocentrism, we should be very careful when determining what would be a deal breaker for them, and thereby whether their consent is well informed. This is recalled by Bork 2. There is no reason to insist that animals must possess the same understanding about sex as human participants. In other words, it is important not to frame animal sexuality in human terms. What humans think is sexual might not be for the animals involved. They might understand it as being physically groomed, fondling, fed, ingesting, ejaculate, relieved, masturbating, or shown affection, or indeed, they might barely register the human contact at all. Fourth, we might argue that valid consent requires equal power, since in zoophilic activity...
Yeah, that's an argument against you, by the way. They don't know what they're doing, so it is...
So
like, why is he saying,
you're
even if they
advocating
did, it
that they
wouldn't be a
be
deal breaker?
misinformed?
Yeah, are you advocating that to be misinformed? You see, with humans, if they were misinformed, then that's a deal breaker. But with animals who can't even consent in the first place, if they didn't even know what they're getting into, then no, it's not. It's fine. It makes no sense, bro.
Yeah, it doesn't make any damn sense. I swear.
It's true that humans usually exert a pervasive control over the animals' lives.
Only got 2 more pages left, thank Lord. Because, existence,
their living conditions, their conditions of reproduction, especially in the case of pets and farm animals. Most relationships between humans and animals therefore take place within a latent structure of domination. The importance of power balance for valid consent has been theorized by some feminist philosophers and mostly applied to human sexual activities. McKinnon, for example, emphasizes the importance of entering sexual intercourse as social equals. 53. This idea can easily be translated to human-animal interactions, and it has inspired quite a few authors. 0.54 Haynes, for example, points out that there is something deeply troubling with sexual relationships of unequal power. 55. And he takes this to be a major objection to bestiality. 0.56 The problem with such arguments is 52. See Benneter, D. 2002. 2 Affairs. 52 of Quarterly 16. 3. 191 201. 53 McKinnon, C. A. 243. 54 C. E. T. Bairn. 1997. 55 Haynes. 56 is no good. 56 Haynes' defense of the impermissibility of zoophilia is, however, cautious. He thinks that there is no good bright line rule to ensure that a sexual relationship is not coerced in a broad sense, and he ends his article by reminding us that animals too have a right to pleasure. 12. Page 13 Landmark Journal of Controversy. Link 10. That it is clear. Link 10.35995/psi0300200005. That it is clear that power asymmetry by itself does not undermine the validity of consent. What is important is rather how it affects consent. This is recalled by McKinnon herself, who notes that for a sexual interaction to count as rape, there must be exploitation of inequalities, i.e. the latter must be deployed as forms of force or coercion in the sexual setting. 57 It is unclear what exploiting power inequalities means exactly, but again it seems unlikely to be a conspicuous feature of sex with animals. In the absence of any convincing argument to this effect, this objection is unsuccessful.
Why can't someone just take an animal and view literally anything as consent? Why can't someone just take an animal and say, oh, he's looking like this or he's standing like this, that means he consents? Take the animal and do disgusting things to it. A'udhu billah.
Like, why can't you can use the same argument, by the way, to say like, oh, why can't I do this to a baby? It smiled when I did this. That's disgusting, dude. No.
Actually.
That's horrible.
In the end, we can conclude that animals can consent to sex with humans. As for the convincing argument.
No, we cannot. We did not conclude that.
We did not conclude that.
In the end, we can conclude that animals can consent to sex with humans. As for the validity of this consent, the gist of my discussion has been that animals can validly consent, according to most conceptions except the most demanding ones, and that the latter term.
No, you even admitted. No, that's not at all what you said.
Either to be unacceptable for other reasons or to make valid consent unnecessary. To engage in sex with animals, given that having sex with animals does not necessarily harm them either. See section. Link 3. We can conclude that having sex with animals is not wrong, and with that zoophilia is not wrong. Heading level 2.5 Implications. If my conclusions are correct, and most people are mistaken about the ethical status of zoophilia, including the majority of the animal rights movement, one immediate implication seems to be that zoophilia ought to be made legally.
No, not the animal rights movement.
No, God, no.
Criminalizing it where it is good.
You want to know why? Because
God,
under that,
no, they should not be.
Yeah, exactly.
Should not be decriminalized.
No, it should not.
Absolutely not. Keep it legal.
Yeah, please.
The immediate implication seems to be that zoophilia ought to be made legal. Zoophilia, including the majority of the animal. If my conclusions are correct, and most people are mistaken about the ethical status of zoophilia, including the majority of the animal rights movement.
Actually, no, they're not, because if their whole thing is about harming animals, then they have actually a solid. They're logically consistent in their own logic about harming animals, this is like bad. So
one, impermissible. This entails decriminalizing it where it is currently outlawed and fighting against the current wave of recriminalization. Going beyond mere legalization, we could argue further that zoophilia ought to be socially normalized too. In this case, the next.
no. See what I mean? Tell me how this is any different from the people like 50 years ago that were saying these kinds of things about homosexuality as well. Tell me how this is any different. I don't see a difference.
Yeah.
You say, oh, it's different activities, but these are the same arguments.
Step in the historical process of sexual liberation might well be to accept zoophilia as a legitimate sexual orientation.
No, we should reject all of these, all of
No.
them.
You're finding out the moral status of zoophilia is not the same as finding out its optimal social status, so we might grant that zoophilia is morally permissible while still opposing decriminalization and normalization, perhaps on the grounds that it would ultimately lead to a worse outcome for animals. This may be so because normalization of zoophilia would increase the number of people engaging in harmful or unconsented relationships with animals. Mere decriminalization may not have significant effects.
So at least you're kind of thinking long term a little bit, but like not really.
But not really. These guys don't ever think long term, bro.
They don't, because if they did, they would have freaking listened to the people who told them, "Hey, dude, do you really think it's a good idea to put out all these like sexual liberation pride things? You really think we should do that? Because it might be a bad idea." No, sure, it makes me happy. Let me do what I want.
Yeah, I know my cat consented. He looked at me.
He said yes with his eyes.
Yeah, he said meow. That means yes.
Are more uncertain. More work would be needed to assess the societal effects of such changes on animals, as well as the potential side effects on public health and human sociability. At any rate, to make these potential changes as beneficial as possible, they should certainly be accompanied by a strong emphasis on animal welfare and rights. To this, the animal rights movement, as well as a large enough fraction of the
That's not possible.
No, you can't do that.
You can't say, I think sex with animals should be decriminalized, but animals should still have rights. No. No, you can't do that. You can't. That's a contradiction. You
can't. Oh my gosh.
Population and decision makers would have to make an ideological U-turn on zoophilia.
They shouldn't.
They shouldn't.
And move away from seeing it as a sexual deviance. However, because of the sheer amount of moral outrage around this topic, advocating for zoophilia should be done with great caution to avoid undermining the broader agenda of the animal rights movement and other social justice movements. There are obvious pragmatic considerations to downplay.
And now you guys see, this is what I meant in the beginning when I said these guys lay out perfect arguments against this like social justice, woke left-wing garbage. They laid out this perfect argument against it because they're using these exact same things to say, oh, zoophilia is morally acceptable, and nobody is, they even admit, nobody thinks that's cool. No one.
Literally no one.
So if you think that's disgusting, then blame these movements that I'm fairly confident a lot of you actually support because you don't understand where it goes. Now you know.
The plea for decriminalizing zoophilia, and even more so for including it within the LGBT+.
Of course you want to be added in there. Of course.
Umbrella.
You know, it would be the smartest thing. It would be the smartest thing for them to do to be out there because they reap all the benefits, all the oppressed benefits, all the diversity benefits.
They could, yeah, you could get like, you could be one of those diversity quota fillers.
You know,
so yeah,
you know, there's this one video I saw. You know, there's this one video I saw where the guy was like, I'm a male, female, non-binary, and when I come to work, I identify as translate, and after lunch, I identify as transable, so that I don't have to work. And then when I get home, I identify as transracial and become a black guy from Brooklyn.
That's hilarious.
57 McKinnon, to Umbrella. The plea for decriminalizing zoophilia, and even more so for including it within the LGBT+. Umbrella. With other social justice movements, there are obvious pragmatic considerations to downplay. The plea for decriminalizing Umbrella 13. Page 14, Landmark Journal of Conflict. Before I conclude, I should note that even if I take my general claim to be robust, I did not have the ambition to map out in detail the boundaries between permissible and impermissible instances of sex with animals, creating social institutions where animals open to sex are prostituted or selectively objectionable, even granted that no harm is caused and that animals validly consent, as it commodifies the lives of animals that are intentionally conditioned through Reinforcement learning to prepare for or perform specific sexual acts might raise specific objections that I have not touched on when characterizing consent. There might also be controversy about passive consent, where no positive behavioral indication of agreement is given and animals appear indifferent to the sexual activity, thus offering at best an implicit or tacit consent. This contradicts the affirmative or enthusiastic consent, sometimes considered to be the only ethically relevant one. I leave these borderline or more controversial cases, as well as many others, to future research on the topic. Heading Level 2 Conclusion. The case for zoophilia being permissible is fairly robust and commonly raised objections.
No, it's not. It's garbage. It's garbage.
False latter are insufficiently backed up. In the course of reviewing them, it has
Sufficiently backed up. Guys, God says so is insufficiently backed up.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
That is insufficient, guys. That's not enough. It's not for me.
Yeah, bro. Why can't I have fun, bro?
Who cares what the creator says, right? He didn't do anything. All he did was create the world and everything in it.
And everything that I ever have is because he decided to give it to me, even though I don't even believe in him.
And I don't deserve it, yeah. But what did he ever do? It's insufficiently.
Yeah, how is he supposed to tell me not to have fun?
Right, man.
Yeah, exactly.
God is a tyrant thing. I need to find that stupid post, and we're gonna respond to that as well in the future.
Oh yeah, guys. So there was this post where this guy didn't know how to freaking read, and he basically misinterpreted the biblical passages to prove that God is. So,
because it's like the classic, "Oh, God is a meanie tyrant" thing. You know that.
Become apparent that they are often imbued with anthropocentrism, dubious appeals to naturalness, overly pessimistic views on what we can know, as well as untenable standards for interacting with animals. Critics of zoophilia need more than outrage. They need better arguments. I suggest that the permissibility of zoophilia should now be taken.
You need better arguments, bro. You need better arguments. If you don't think God says so is a good argument, then you need better ones then, dude. Because, oh my gosh.
As the default position, with the burden of proof belonging to its critics.
The burden of proof belongs to us?
No, you're the one that's making the claim.
Then it's fine.
The practical implications of this conclusion remain fairly open, though ensuring that people have the legal right to engage in zoophilia seems to be a straightforward next step. To discuss the stringent crackdown on all forms of zoophilia that has accompanied the improvement in the legal status of animals in the last decades may turn out to be a mistake.
No, it's really not.
At any rate, it is time for philosophers, animal rights activists, and decision makers to reconsider their view on zoophilia. Hopefully, this article can contribute to opening this overdue discussion. 14. Bang.
Thank the good Lord, this is over, dude.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so now what I want to do is close off with a few passages from the Quran. If you want to. So now we have established.
Clickable button, clickable little tree, clickable mute micro.
So basically, this person established a whole bunch of.
Okay, so now we've established that this guy makes terrible arguments. So now I'm gonna read to you, just because he said whatever, the burden of proof, whatever. I'm gonna read to you just in case. And obviously you can pull up biblical passages, but it's very clear that don't have sex with animals. I'm going to read to you a few passages that talk about animals and humans and make it extremely clear from the Quran. Now, obviously, when it comes to these guys not appealing to God, they have to ignore God, because if they ignore God, they just lose. And I'll show you why.
Clickable mute microphone.
Exactly.
Oh, Kevin says, he says, "Hey bro, how's it going? I don't know if you're tuned into this, but alhamdulillah, bro. We're doing
we're
blasting.
You can watch this back. We just got done with this terrible article that was saying zoophilia is good, bestiality is good, and God says so is not a good argument, apparently.
Yes, by the way, zoophilia is... Okay, so I'm going to read you a few passages from the Quran. So I'm going to read to you Surah 16, verse 72. And I'll listen to the wording of 1672 because it's going to make it very clear. It says, Allah has given you mates from among yourselves, and has produced for you from your mates children and grandchildren, and has provided you with good things. Now listen to the last sentence of this verse. Will they then believe in falsehood and refuse Allah's favors? Literally, super clear, right? What is the goal of making mates from among ourselves in this verse?
It seems to be for children.
Exactly, children, right? Okay, now let's look at Surah Al-Ghafir, and I'm going to read you verse 79. It says, Allah is He who created the domestic animals for you, some for you to ride and some for food for you. Does it say anything about some for you to have sex with?
Oh, hell no.
Does it say that?
No.
No. Right? So, now we're going to go to Quran chapter number 42, and I'm just going to read to you verse 11. Okay. Originator of the heavens and the earth, He made for you mates from among yourselves and pairs of animals by means of which He multiplies you. There is nothing like Him. He is the hearing, the seeing. How clear is that?
That's clear.
How clear is that? Does He say, we created animals for you so that you can have sex with them and do disgusting things with them? No. He says some for you to ride on and some for you to eat. Right? So, and He says they have created mates and pairs of animals. Why would He need to create pairs of animals if it was permissible for humans to have sex with animals anyway?
You wouldn't.
Exactly.
It's obvious that they're meant for, the animals are meant for, the pairs are meant for each other.
Exactly. And
the
then, as
humans are not involved.
says, we made mates from among them, from among yourselves. Why doesn't it say from among the animals?
Because it doesn't say that. Because it's
exactly.
That's not the purpose. The purpose.
And we provide for you children and grandchildren, which is in complete it's completely intertextual with 189. And do they believe in falsehoods? The falsehood is what we just said, and they refuse Allah's favors. Someone who's doing that is refusing the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of children and grandchildren and multiplication, and the ability to enjoy one's mate in a legal and lawful manner. That is the favor that He has given us. Right?
Clickable, start cap,
it's
clickable.
Extremely clear. If you don't want to, it's super clear, right?
That's why we actually, this is why we in the Christian world as well, we don't support like casual sex either, even if it's hetero. Yeah. We don't support that. We don't think that's we don't think that is the purpose. We don't think that is what it's for. We think that it's for a married couple.
Yeah,
do that.
And this is why fornication is,
and it's an act that is open to life. That it is open to procreation, and that's why we don't think that it should be treated as casually as it is.
And the Quran agrees with you completely, because it literally said, like, I've given you several verses, and there's more that say these things, right? But I've given you several of them. They're in complete conformity with one another, and they highlight one another. They give more detail, right? So the Quran agrees with you, and I've talked about why fornication is not forbidden. Not permitted. I've talked about why fornication is haram. I've talked about why that is, and that's why we don't believe in casual.
We don't do that.
Because not the purpose of it. And this
That's
is what
not
the
the
first
point. That's why we also I don't know if you guys have a stance against these things, but we also the Catholic Church has a stance against contraceptives as well because it's
contraceptives.
yeah. The Catholic Church has a stance against contraceptives like birth control and stuff like that because it
Okay.
encourages you to make it casual. Because what you can do is just be like,
Yes.
oh, well, we can do this and then we can just have the birth control and, fixed, problem solved, right?
Yeah.
That's why we're against that kind of stuff.
There's a scholarly ruling on that. Let me actually look up the scholarly ruling on that. It's pretty interesting. Bro, come on. Okay.
People are like asking, oh, why do you guys like want to regulate these kinds of things? And it's because like it's about keeping to God's freaking commandments and sticking to what God means for these things, what his purposes
Use of
for
abortion
these
as
acts are.
means it is clearly forbidden by Islam.
Say that again?
The scholarly ruling is using abortion as contraceptive is forbidden. According to the
that's good.
ruling that we have.
Yeah,
the
people documents would agree with that. That's why they oppose like all these other things.
Yeah, I mean, we can assume from those verses that the purpose of that type of intercourse is for children. So that's literally refusing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favors.
It's at the very least a act that is open to it and pretty has a kind of a high chance of going there, and like you're not supposed to go against that. So that's why it's
granted, if you're like, obviously we believe fornication is haram. So if you're married and you're using a contraceptive, why? Like, there's no reason. Why?
There's no reason why you would.
Because in order to get married, you need to understand that marriage isn't just like, hey, I meet you today, let's get married now.
Right.
Marriage is something that takes time. You need money. And this is exactly like, remember that one conversation we had about the feminists thing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Because according to Islam, bro, if the husband makes money, he has to spend it on her. He has to spend it on the children, her parents. He has to take care of all that. If she makes money, she can do almost whatever the heck she wants with it, as long as it's not haram, it doesn't ruin the family, things like that. She can do whatever she wants. So that's why, like, when we say the son gets more than the daughter of inheritance, because the son is the one that needs to pay the mahr, which is like the marriage gift, which someone paid $3 million for, by the way. I don't know who the hell that was. Heck no. You got me messed up. Anyway, so it's very clear that this is not like some run of the mill. Oh yeah, I just want to have sex with an animal. Like, no.
No. And that's why in our belief system, we wait because of the fact that sexual activity is open to procreation.
Yeah.
We wait until you're able to get married and you're in a stable position to be able to have that.
Exactly.
So that way you're not like screwing yourself. And people are always asking like, "Oh, why do they want to impose this thing on me? Why are you trying to regulate it? It's better for you. It's been shown empirically that it's better for you to wait. And it's just logical that it's better for you to wait until you're in a stable position.
And there's a lot of reasons for
able to support a child. And if you have a problem with
because
these,
like I always said,
yeah, go ahead.
And I'm probably gonna say it again. There's a reason why fornication is haram. There's several reasons. And I've always said this. If a boyfriend and girlfriend hook up and they get pregnant, what stops the boy from saying, what? You're on your own. I'm not paying you jack, and just leaves.
Yeah.
What stops him?
And what stops the girl from getting an abortion?
What stops the girl from just saying, you know what, I don't care about my child. I'm gonna just leave him at a dumpster. I'm just gonna go to the club and I'm just gonna drown in my sorrow. What stops her?
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing. In Islam, if you're married, that means you already have a commitment going. Right? And like I said, with the whole, this is a whole other topic. But on the topic of marriage, this is why marriage is preserved through Islam, and this is why the veiling thing is there. Because if you're married to someone and you know that you're only seeing them because they're always out, they're always covered up, and if you know that, then that makes you willing to stick around. And if you have a child, that means you're willing to stick around for the child. And if you're married, that means that you already have a stable enough income to support the child if you have it. Right? That means that if you could fornicate as a teen, and you could be broke as a joke, and that child is still on the way.
Yeah. That's why on the whole fornication topic, that's why we say do not do this until you're in a commitment, until you're in a marriage. Don't do this until then, because it's better for you to wait. Not because we're trying to like control you or whatever.
Not just for you.
Not because freaking God, some like tyrant that wants to rule over your sex life or whatever these stupid liberals say. It's because it's better for you to do so. It's better for you to do this. And if you have a problem,
it's not just better for you, by the way. It's better for your partner.
Yeah, it's better for both parties.
And for the children. It's better for the children.
It's overall better to just wait. And if you have a problem with all of these like sexual ethics that we're talking about here, then you have no ability to argue against all that stuff we just went over. The article, you have no ability to argue against it. You can't.
Yeah, if you have an objection,
because what you have to do, like I said, you have to resort to these ethics to argue against these disgusting perversions. You have to resort to these kinds of ethics. And if you don't, then you can't. But if you do resort to these ethics, then you have to reject all the other things that are not in line with them, like the homosexuality stuff, all the LGBT stuff, all the new sexualities they want to invent that they always come out with every week. You have to reject it all. You have to.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to do that, then I guess you have no ability, you have no way to argue against zoophilia, and that's going to be your problem to figure it out.
And that's going to be your problem because
we presented a good logical case.
LGBTQIAA2S+Z.
Yeah. We presented a logical case that removes zoophilia from the equation, but it also removes all this other stuff as well.
Exactly.
So I really hope that you're able to be fine with that, because if you're not, then you're fine with zoophilia.
Then exactly. And these guys, no, it's not zoophilia, bro. Literally anything.
Fine with zoophilia, pedophilia, necrophilia, whatever that thing with objects is.
I forgot the name.
Whatever the thing with robots is, like all that stuff, you're fine with it all.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. Let me see the name. What is the name of that weird thing where you want to have sex with objects? Let's see.
What are you asking?
Objectophilia.
Yeah, you're fine with that as well.
Objectophilia. Where you want to have sex with robots.
Oh my
it's God. 2023. Where are the sex robots? What?
I swear.
Robot fetishism?
Is that an actual article?
Yeah.
I'm dead. I might have to look at that at some point.
The first result was, it's 2023. Where are the sex robots?
Where are they?
Yeah, where are they?
Oh my gosh, dude. See, this is the kind of things you enable if you don't accept these our ethics.
You literally enable everything that you want.
Yeah. And with that, I think we said pretty much everything.
Yeah.
We've gone over the article.
Enter last skip edit lives clickable is clickable cancel button.
I think we've gone
over end stream but
all that we've needed to. It's incredibly clear his argument is not good. It's incredibly clear that I made a case based on scripture that zoophilia is condemned by God.
Yeah, he as far as biblically, yeah, he mentioned some stuff in Leviticus. And I remember that these guys actually one of the first videos I did on the rebrand was the Zoophile podcast. And they were saying, the New Testament doesn't say anything. Actually, yes, it does. So it's talking about sexual immorality, and this definitely goes under that. If homosexuality is mentioned by name and sexual morality as well, then yes, this definitely is still prohibited under New Testament, no matter which interpretation you want to go with.
Oh yeah. Can I just comment on that real quick? So, he just said, okay, so okay, good. So, perfect. All right. So, we have so he said, I think in that thing. Okay. So he said in that thing, correct me if I'm wrong, that zoophilia is halal in Islam because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was nice to people who did that. Yeah, but the problem is he was nice to a bunch of people. He was nice to his uncle who mistreated him and did a bunch of stuff to him and his family. He didn't do anything to him. Does that mean that?
No. Start click show stop show name clickable mic clickable start.
It says, I'm just gonna read it. It's a short one. Narrated Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whomever you see having relations with an animal, then kill him and kill the animal."
Yeah, that's basically what it says in Leviticus as well.
What the case of the animal? He said, "Yeah."
He quoted it in the article.
Yeah. So he said, "I see that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam disliked eating its meat or using it to do the fact that such a heinous thing has been done with that animal." At-Tirmidhi 1455. At-Tirmidhi hadith Tirmidhi is very authentic hadith. So it doesn't matter who he was nice to, because he was nice to several people, right? He was nice to the Jews of Banu Qurayza until they turned on him, and then they fought, right? He was nice to several people. That doesn't mean that he likes what they did or what they do, right? You can't make that point.
Yeah, he didn't even do any citations, probably because you can't.
Yeah, I don't even think that's like what people did he cite that happened.
He didn't cite anything.
Like, even if I was to grant that,
I went through.
So what?
Yeah, who cares? Because according to these other sources, he's saying that don't even eat the meat of an animal that's been that somebody's done that with. So that should tell you exactly what his thoughts are on it.
Don't eat meat or don't do anything because a heinous thing has been done to it. That makes sense, because obviously it's bad for the animal, because the animal didn't like it, and the meat and using it for other things, so it would make more sense to kill the animal. Now, if you say, oh well, killing the animal is worse than leaving it alive, well, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us like codes, ways to kill the animal, like the animal can't see the knife, The animal can't, things like that. The animal, it has to be in a place where it's quick, and the animal can't see it, and the animal doesn't feel anything. It just, it just doesn't know what happened, which is better for it. So yeah. So yeah, exactly. So don't even eat the meat or don't do anything to it. Just kill it to put it out of its misery, and kill it quickly. It doesn't know what happened to it, because obviously that animal is not gonna. It's gonna hurt the animal to have that happen to it. So yeah, but I think we've covered everything. What do you think?
Yeah, we have.
Banner list, edit, clickable, clickable, pause,
So
clickable,
guys,
lens,
I
main,
have to admit, and I have to pray. Really, I have to pray like my whole tarawih, which is 20 rak'ah, which takes like 2 hours, like an hour or so, because I feel dirtied by what we just read.
I feel
guys,
absolutely disgusted, and
I do just want to close off by reminding you guys that Gaza is still being bombed, and over 20,000 people have been killed in Gaza. All right? No matter who you support, no matter if you're with Diaper Force or if you're with Palestine, no matter who you support, 20 or so thousand people in Gaza have been killed. Children have been killed. People that are in Palestine children have to go out in the street and sell things so that they can buy food, because they have no food there. So whoever you support, make sure to make a prayer, make a dua that this ends, that the bloodshed stops, and that innocent children don't continuously get killed. No matter who it is that you support, it's very clear children are getting killed. And so the Israel is in court right now for genocide against South Africa, is accusing them of genocide. They're in the International Court of Justice. The ruling is not out yet, but pray that it is a good outcome and at least the bloodshed stops. Innocent children don't get killed. We believe those innocent children are with the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in paradise. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And with that, guys, amazing stream, and I have to so assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You guys have a good day. Take care.
We'll see you later. I might end up clipping some of this stuff just to.
But tab main landmark having a shoot on broadcast and no skip edit clickable lens main banner landmark clickable lens main landmark clickable button click a banner land main land clickable Fernando clickable for clickable banner landmark clickable heading level 4 not get button
okay. That I was at the stupid button. All right, it's time for real, guys. We'll see you guys later. We'll see you guys in the next one.
And I'm
this video at least, and I'll see you later.
Unavailable.